Welcome to the last and final video for week 6. So here I want to show you two more variations of that model for determining whether or not a client has enough money to, to get to the end of life, if you will, right? Okay, so what we've been doing implicitly in the previous two videos is we've always said, okay, the expected returns are going to stay the same, right, for each year, and then the assumptions regarding the withdrawals are going to stay the same. Well, you don't necessarily have to do that. So here, start with year 1, okay, year 5, but now let's let all of these assumptions change year by year. So I need to make an assumption for my mean return, right, for the stock market, and then of course my standard deviation. So, I'll just let this kind of be the usual. But say in year 2, we expect a great year, but a little bit more variation. Year 3, it's got to come down a little bit, right? So that's, say, to 10%. Year 4, it creeps up a little bit. But so does the volatility. And then year 5, we get up to, say, a 16% return with, say, volatility comes down, right? Okay, so the point is, now the way I've set it up here, I just got that, I'm assuming that this client just has that one bucket of gold, right? So for example, here, these are going to be the expected returns in the stock market, right? Now again, I could make this more complicated by having the returns for, say, the stock market. I could put in returns for the bond market, so on and so forth, like we did in the last video, right? So that this thing can grow in complexity quite easily. But so I've got these new assumptions for my returns, but year by year. But by the same token, I can also change my assumptions for what the client is going to withdraw from year to year. So we'll start off with our usual, say, 50,000 to 70,000, right? But maybe, talking to the client, we've decided that basically the client is going to be withdrawing, say, $5,000 more every year, right? Medical bills are going up, so on and so forth. So we can easily do that. And copy that over. All right. So here we have our new model. Now, what I like about this is it's so robust, right? We have made assumptions for our returns in every year, and we have made assumptions about the withdrawals for every year, all right? And I do want to point out, I know I've already said this, but keep in mind that in this video, I'm just doing it, for, say, the stock market. But you could easily do this for the stock market, the bond market, whatever markets your client is in, you could create assumptions for every year, both on the returns that you expect to happen in that market and what they're going to withdraw from that group of funds, okay? All right, so at any rate, now I'm ready to do my simulations. Pardon me. So let's say we start off with $250,000. And I need to do my year 1, so that's going to be the 250 times 1 plus, and I got my norm.inverse function. So here's going to be the return. So I got my RAND, open close parentheses, and then the mean from year 1 and the standard deviation from year 1. Okay, and then I close the parentheses and hit OK. All right, so looks like my portfolio has grown, but of course I need to subtract what I withdraw. So that's going to be the 50,000 plus RAND times upper minus lower. Make sure I have enough parentheses. There you go. Voila. All right, so my bucket of gold dropped a little bit, so that's unfortunate. Now what I want to do is I want to copy these over. So I want to copy, I want to anchor the mean and standard deviation for my norm dot inverse, and then I want to anchor the lower bound here, lower and upper bound here. And so now, let me copy this across, and voila, ooh, ran out of money. So look, okay, now everything is set up correctly, right? I'm referencing year 4 times 1 plus the return in year 5, and I've got the F2 and the F3, great, minus what I'm going to pull out, well, that's the 70 plus the RAND times the lower and upper minus lower bound. So perfect. By anchoring that way, I've got everything set up just the way I need to. I only have to do this function once, copy it across, and I'm good. Now also, by doing this, right, now I'm also in a position to copy everything down. You see, each of these, I'll do it here. See, each of these now is linked to the year 1 stuff is linked to year 1. And it's anchored on the numbers so that when I copy it down, I'm not going to lose my anchor. So I'm actually ready to copy this down. So I'll hit copy. Oh, forgot. I got to get this cell too. My bad. There we go. Okay, copy. Okay, let's get a few in there. There we go. That's plenty. Hit paste. There you go. So this is a nice model. Look, you can see here I ran out of money here. Now in a situation like this, and I've said this before, well, normally you want to run your summary statistics like your mean, standard deviation, the min, the max, the number of times, that this number is less than 0, and then calculate the probability that I'm going to run out of money. But in a situation like this, when you're increasing the withdrawals, you do want to start looking maybe at year 4, right? So you might want to run summary statistics on years 4, years 5, and even, quite frankly, in year 3, right? Just to see where this client is at. In fact, quite frankly, you might just want to run summary statistics every year. Just on average, here's where you're going to end up at year 1, here's where you're going to end up at year 2, so on and so forth, okay? So, here is another really nice extension to that model. This one is super flexible. You can change these returns, these standard deviations, these lower and upper bounds at whim, and everything is going to change, right? So, for example, let's say that they're going to start say 45,000 to 65,000. Presto, there you go, right? Everything updates itself. You don't have to redo anything. Okay, so let me go back to 50 and 70. All right, now there's one other extension on this model that I think is really nice. So implicit in all of this is this notion that we expect the returns in year 1 to be 15% with a standard deviation of 12. Same with year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. All right. Well, there's one other extension. What if we do think about something like this? What if we think that in year 3, there's a probability that the market could go up, say 11%, but there's also some probability that we're going to hit a recession in year 3, right? So the idea here is we have 2 states of nature, if you will. We're going to have a high state, so that let's call this the H state, okay? And then we're also going to have a low state. So if the low state occurs, right, we expect to be in a recession. So here, say the returns might actually be negative, right? And then let's just put in a standard deviation of 0.08. And for these purposes, let's just assume that the client will spend somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000. Now, I understand that if we do hit a recession, maybe this is something like, well, you got to tell your client, hey, if the market does go into recession in year 3, you need to cut back on your spending easily modeled, you know, just put in what the new assumptions would be. So let's go back to 55,000 and 75,000. All right? So now we have two states of nature. So now what I need to do is calculate what's the value of my portfolio at the end of year 3 if I'm in this low state. All right? So it's the same thing that we've done before. So, but be careful, because I need to start with my year 2 balance, right? And then multiply that by 1 plus, and then of course I get my my norm.inverse function. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, probability still ran, open close parentheses. Now here the mean is the negative 0.1, and the standard deviation is the 0.8. And then close this parentheses, hit OK, and then go back here and subtract now my withdrawals. So that's going to be the 55,000 plus ran, open close, times my upper bound minus my lower bound, close. I need another parentheses. There we go. Okay. So you can see, right, you know, in this lower case, you know, I'm down almost half, right, 161,000 to 88,000. Okay. Now, I need to go in and anchor this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to anchor the mean in the norm.inverse function and the standard deviation. And then I'm going to anchor the lower bound for my withdrawals. And then the upper and lower bound, sorry, let me scoot over, the upper and lower bound in my withdrawal. So there you go. Now, copy this down. Okay, so I've got to copy this down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, oh, there we go. All right, paste. All right, there you go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a column here. Okay, and this is going to be my actual year 3. Okay, so here's the idea, right? There's positive probability that year 3 we could have positive returns in the market, or there's probability that we have negative returns in the market. So year 3 is actually a combination of year 3 high and year 3 low, right? And it's going to be a weighted average based on the probabilities that you assign to having a high year versus a low year, all right? So for example, let's say that there's a 50-50 chance you're going to be in a high year and low year. Low year, not low year. Low year. All right, so what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to put in the probabilities of being in each state. So maybe what I should do is I'll say high is 0.5, and then low is also 0.5, right? Because you don't know. So basically what we're saying is there's a 50-50 chance to have a good or bad year, all right? So then what year 3 is it's the expected value between the high and the low year. So the actual account balance in year 3 is 50% of high plus 50% of low. So all you have to do here is take this, open parentheses, take this and multiply it by the high year, right? Plus this and multiply it by the low year. There you go. So this is the expected value of, of the portfolio in year 3. All right? And then what we want to do is just copy this down. Whoop. Okay. paste. Oh, Kirk, what a shame, what a shame. Well, obviously, you need to anchor F3, should have saw that coming, and F5, my probabilities. So I'll copy, paste again, voila, there we go. All right, back in business. Okay, so now you still have one more adjustment to make. Now you've got to go back to year 4. See, in year 4, right, in our old model, was referencing this. So you need to change this. This should not be D7. This should now be F7, right? Because I need to take the expected value of my portfolio in year 3 as the base for my year 4. So I need to change that. And then same thing, copy that, and paste it all the way down. There you go. All right, so here is a way that we can incorporate, uncertainties in the returns from year to year. And what I like about this particular model is, not only are we allowing, say, for an increase in returns versus a decrease in returns, but we can also adjust the probability that we want to assign. So, for example, we did a 50-50, but what if you thought it was more like 0.8, and 0.2, right? Set it up this way, everything flows through. Or you could turn around, 0.2, 0.8, all right? Now, this is the easiest way to do this, right? And again, pardon me, let me back up. So again, you're going to want to run your summary statistics off of year 5 and year 4, what have you. All right. Now, I should also say that what you could do if you wanted to is also present the client with 2 different year 5 numbers. All right. So in other words, now what I'm going to do is just to keep this clean. So, well, I'll tell you what, I'll keep this. I'm just worried that it might get a little bit dirty on you, or messed up. But the idea here is, see, in the way that I have formulated the problem right now, right, because the year 3, I've taken the expected value of my year 3 and used that for my year 4 and then right on to my year 5 returns. Another way to do this is actually to say, okay, bear with me. Insert here. So this would be, say, year 4 high. And then this would be year 4 low. Okay. And so and then bear with me. And then this would be year 5 H. Oh, that did not go well. Year 5 H. And then year 5, oh boy, year 5 low, right? So what this variation is going to do is you're going to present the client with, look, if we have a good year in year 3, this is what you can expect in year 5. However, if we have a bad year in year 3, this is what you can expect, right? And then obviously the expected value of these two combined, right, is really what was happening here when I did it in year 3. So it just depends on how you want to present the data to your client, right? Now, if you do it this way, what you have to do, it's really easy, but what you have to do is, so now I need to take year 4, and now I need to link year 4. Well, year 4 high has to be linked to year 3 high. So instead of F7, that was going to be D7. And then I got to copy that down. Okay. And then I'm going to go over here. And then year 5 high, see, this now needs to be linked. Well, thankfully it already is. It's linked to the high, the year 4 high, right? Which is based off of having a good year in year 3. So this is all set up and ready to go. And then I need to do the low version. So just so you guys can see all this. So I have to do the same thing again. So now the year 4 low version, right? This is going to equal, see, this is my point. The year 4 low version has to be based off of the bad outcome occurring in year 3. So I'm going to link it to year 3 low and then multiply it by 1 plus, and everything else is the same. My RAN function. Okay, now year 4, right? I'm still using these expected returns. We're just assuming that in year 4 the market is going to go up 13%. So I'm just going to tie it to this and to that. Close this parentheses. Yeah, there we go. Oh, I needed one more. Okay, whatever. And then here, I'm going to subtract my withdrawals. So again, the withdrawals in year 4 are between 65 and 85. So I'm going to take the 65 plus RAN times 85 minus 65. There we go. Okay. And then anchor some stuff. So I got to anchor this. Sorry, I'm going to anchor G2 as the mean, G3 is standard deviation. Oops, and then I got to anchor my lower bound here, upper here, lower here, and now I'm ready to copy this guy. Well, I certainly didn't like that. Oh, gotta do it the old-fashioned way then. There, right. Paste. Voila. Okay. So that was year 4 low, and it is tied to year 3 low. Everything else looks good. And then I have to do the same thing for year 5 low, right? Because that's got to be tied to year 4 low. So, let me get this started. This is this number. And again, it's the same thing. That number times 1 plus norm dot inverse, so RAN. Right, and then the same thing. The returns in year 5 are still the same, 0.16, standard deviation of 0.12. And then close this parentheses. There we go. Hit OK. And then subtract my withdrawals. So this is in year 5, it's my lower bound, plus RAN, gotta spell it right, RAN times upper minus lower. And make sure I got enough parentheses. Boy, I still got one more. There we go. All right, perfect. Okay. And then same thing, let me scoot over so you can see this. I have to anchor the mean, the standard deviation, lower bound, upper bound minus lower bound. And then copy, paste this down. Not bad. There you go. Paste. Okay, there you go. So in this formulation, again, what you're doing is you're showing the client what would occur if the good outcome in year 3 occurred versus the good outcome in the good outcome in year 3 versus the bad outcome in year 3. This would show you the difference in the client's portfolio, right? Now, either one of these is acceptable, right? What I did here is I just took the expected return in year 3 and then followed that out in year 4 and year 5. So when you do it this way, you're only showing the client the expected return of the high and low, right? Whereas here you're actually breaking it out for the client. All right, that's the only difference, right? What I should say is, it just depends on how you want to present this to your client. All right. Well, that's it. So that's the last variation of the model. And I should say, obviously, I don't think we need to get into every little thing, but you can do this for every year if you'd like. You can assume that there's a positive probability that there'll be a recession in each year. It's not that it becomes more complicated. It just means you've got more more columns to deal with, and you just have to keep everything straight. But I don't think it really complicates things too much. And even if you don't assume that you're going to have a recession, right? You could always say that, like for example, in year 1, there's a positive probability that the return would be 15%, but maybe it would go down to like 10%, right? And so you could start modeling all that stuff as well. All right? Well, basically, there you have it. These are all the things that you can do to model how long a client's income is going to last. All right? Well, that's it for the week 6 videos.